What evil force has driven the newest wedge between the dynamic duo? Well, let's hop into the pages of Batman vs. Robin issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, this newest Mark Waid miniseries actually spins out of the pages of Batman Superman World's Finest, and for once this series actually starts with something I haven't seen in a very long time, and that is a little primer to get you up to speed on who Damian-Playing is, assuming this is your first comic ever. In fact, despite this series picking up on several continuity threads, they really seem to be going for more of an evergreen kind of approach to comic storytelling, which is always cool to see. We're reminded how Damian-Playing is a man straddling two worlds, the legacy of the Dark Knight detective, but also the legacy of the Demon's Head. For a while there, it seemed that Damian had settled down and made up his mind about what he wanted to do with his life. That is, of course, until the death of Alfred sent him into a spiral and caused him to reevaluate all of his life's choices. Which is a nice way of saying Damian had found a good, comfortable status quo until several terrible writing decisions caused him to walk back a bunch of his development. But hey, at least we got that really solid Joshua Williamson solo series out of the whole thing, so I guess it wasn't all bad. As we join the story proper, we check on in with Bruce, who just so happens to be at Wayne Manor, which is weird, because he's not actually lived there for a couple years now after losing all of his money at the end of Joker War, which is just one of those status quo changes that we've just sort of been living with. It hasn't really affected the stories that much, and no writer has really tried to undo it. For whatever reason, Bruce was feeling nostalgic that night and decided to take in a bunch of the family paintings, and it's a good thing he did too, because it's on that very same rainy night he ends up getting a knock at the door. And on the other side of that door, Bruce is shocked to see none other than his surrogate father, loyal butler, and best friend, Alfred Pennyworth, seemingly back from the dead. Alfred, in case you didn't know, has been dead since 2019. Now, Bruce isn't stupid. Given the crazy life he lives, there's a good 50-50 chance that this guy isn't actually Alfred. It could be Clayface or Hugo Strange or any other number of supervillains out to get him. But the longer he talks to Alfred, the more it seems like this guy is the real deal. Not only does he know stuff that only the real Alfred could possibly know, but it seems that he's actively stuck in the last few minutes before his death. He says that they need to save Damian from Bane and Bruce's own father Thomas, which is of course a reference to the end of Tom King's run, City of Bane, which goddamn, being stuck in a Tom King Batman story, that really is a fate worse than death, isn't it? What's even funnier is with comic books' sliding timescale, we discover that City of Bane only actually happened a few months ago, even though it's been 3 real-world years. Bruce decides that maybe he should run some medical tests on this Alfred so he'll know for certain if he's the genuine article or not, and once again, Alfred ends up passing all the tests. He knows where the door to the Batcave is, behind the clock, activated by putting in the time wherein Martha and Thomas Wayne were murdered. So far, so good, actually, but this is a Batman story, and you know nothing ever comes easy for Bruce Wayne. As he enters the cave, he ends up coming under attack by his own son, Damian. Bruce tells Alfred to hide so he can finally have it out with his wayward son. Damian says that Batman's time is over and that this is his house now. Understandably, Batman takes some issue with these comments, and as such decides that Damian isn't too old to get himself a whoopin'. Also, while Bruce and Damian's relationship has never been exactly 100% good, it's never exactly been this bad before, Bruce jumps to the conclusion that surely some other evil outside force must be controlling Robin right now. You may also notice that Damian didn't come to this fight alone. He actually brought backup in the form of 2 criminally underutilized characters. First off, there's Tim Hunter, a 90s Neil Gaiman character who will one day grow up to be the greatest magic user in the DC universe. And if you're thinking to yourself, man, he looks a lot like Harry Potter, well, guess what? You're not alone. Because when the first Harry Potter book came out, a lot of people did assume, especially in Britain, that J.K. Rowling had ripped off Gaiman. Gaiman took the whole thing with good humor, and the whole story has basically kind of been lost to time. Then, of course, there's Joaquin Thunder, heir to the Thunder legacy of the JSA. If you don't know what his gimmick is, basically as a genie who grants his every wish for him. But in classic Golden Age fashion, he has to be really careful what he wishes for, and he can't make the same wish twice. Seriously, I don't know why they don't write more stories about this character, especially in a post-JoJo's Bizarre Adventure world. I mean, look at him, he's got a frickin' magic stand! The battle itself is incredibly creative because you don't see Batman go mano-a-mano with magic users like this all the time, and the tricks they pull out are really damn clever. They make the costumes in the Batcave come to life and attack him. Joaquin even animates that big T-Rex sculpture that's always in the Batcave and starts riding around into battle like it was a friggin' horse. Now you might be thinking to yourself, surely Alfred Alfred being resurrected and Damian turning on Batman must be related, right? It must be all part of some bigger scheme. Well, it actually seems not at first. You see, Damian, even while under the influence of mind control, ends up completely stopping in his tracks when he sees Alfred. After all, Damian still blames himself a whole lot for what went down with Alfred. For a second, you think the butler may actually be able to talk some sense into the kid, but Damian quickly turns, figuring that this must also be some sort of Batman trick to try and get the better of him. Batman is quickly losing the fight, mainly because he doesn't want to hit these teenagers any harder than he has to, so him and Alfred end up fleeing deeper into the Batcave. When Damian corners them, though, he decides to pull out an actual real-deal gun and shoot his father dead, saying that isn't this a wonderful bit of symmetry here? Batman dies the same way he was born. Of course, Batman doesn't die so easily. He eats the shot, so him and Alfred can end up falling down a not-so-bottomless pit. No mistake, though, they're thoroughly through the looking glass now. Damian has turned against them, and because of that, he pretty much knows everything Batman knows, which means taking him down is going to be quite the uphill struggle. The one big lead they do have is that this is a magic problem, which means they're going to have to find a magic solution. And speaking of magic problems, Damian and his two henchmen return to their base of operations, which just so happens to be the Tower of Fate, home of Dr. Fate, one of the most powerful magic users in the entire DC universe. Only he's not home right now. Who is the mysterious individual that's pulling Damian's strings right now, and it seems that they have acquired one hell of a treasure trove of stolen magical items, including the Eclipso gem, and more still. When we check back on in with Batman, he uses a magic key given to him by Zatanna to have a one-on-one audience with the more magical members of the DC universe. Only here's the problem. Whatever Damian is doing right now has seemingly corrupted magic in the DC universe. Zatanna herself is stuck in a state of life and death, and the other members of Justice League Dark aren't exactly doing much better either. It looks like Batman is going to have to do a lot more than just save his son. He's going to have to save lots of people, and to do that, he's going to have to take a trip to the mysterious House of Secrets. But who exactly is the person threatening the world of magic? Who is the person who turned father against son? Well, it's none other than Devil Nezha. He was the villain of that Mark Waid Batman Superman book, but he's not alone either. He's also joined by Mother Soul, who is Damian's great-grandmother and villain of that Robin solo title. And they both vow to stop at nothing to see that Damian will kill his father by the time all of this is said and done. And so that was Batman vs. Robin issue number 1, everybody. And despite my almost endless smack-talking of this series in the lead-up, saying it's ridiculous to break Batman and Robin up and keep them separate for as long as they did, if only to facilitate this series, well, you know what, I'm gonna have to eat my words, because I really ended up liking this issue. And it wasn't just the return of Alfred and the surrounding mystery. Don't get me wrong, that's good, and having Alfred back certainly did feel like coming home again. But what really made me a fan of this story is seeing how Mark Waid actually went out of his way to pick up on a bunch of loose continuity threads and try to tie them together here in this story. Having Bruce fight Damian is also nothing new, but the extra added magical bent to it I ended up enjoying a lot more than I thought I would. Hell, I'm actually much more excited to have Mother Soul be one of the bad guys in this story than I was Devil Nezha, who I felt was ultimately a little underwritten. Overall, though, I'd actually feel comfortable giving this one a 9 out of 10. This one really pleasantly surprised me. In fact, I went in thinking I wasn't going to like this book at all, and yet it ended up completely changing my mind in the span of reading it. I hope the rest of this series can actually keep up the momentum going forward, because if so, I think we're going to actually have a real winner on our hands.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.